In the early 7th century, the Arabian Peninsula was a harsh, unforgiving land, vast deserts, scattered oases. It had fiercely independent tribes that lived and died by honor, loyalty, and survival. To the north lay the decaying empires of Byzantium and Persia, exhausted by decades of war. Few could have imagined that from this barren land would emerge a force that would shake the foundations of the ancient world. Within just a few decades, Arab warriors, once tribal nomads, would unite under a single banner and carve out an empire stretching from Spain to India. This is the story of the early Muslim conquests, how Arabia conquered the Middle East and forever changed the course of history. It began in 610 CE, in the city of Mecca, when a man named Muhammad ibn Abdullah claimed to have received revelations from God. His message was simple, yet revolutionary. There is only one God, and all men are equal before him. It challenged the old tribal order and the idol worship that had dominated Arabia for centuries. Many resisted him, but others were moved by his words. Over the next 22 years, through persecution, exile, and war, Muhammad built not just a new faith, but a new kind of community ummah, united not by tribe or blood, but by belief. By the time of his death in 632 CE, Muhammad had united most of Arabia under Islam. For the first time in history, the fractious tribes of the peninsula stood together under one creed. Yet his passing left a critical question. Who would lead this new nation? The Prophet had left no clear successor, and tensions quickly rose. Eventually, Abu Bakr, one of Muhammad's closest companions, was chosen as the first Caliph, the leader of the faithful, but his rule began under threat. Many tribes, seeing Muhammad's death as the end of their allegiance, broke away from Medina. Others even claimed to have their own prophets. Abu Bakr responded with determination. He launched the Ridda Wars, or Wars of Apostasy, to bring the rebellious tribes back into the fold. It was a brutal campaign, fought tribe by tribe, until the entire Arabian Peninsula was once again united under the Caliphate. By 633 CE, Islam was consolidated in Arabia. But peace did not last long. The restless energy of the tribes, now united and disciplined, turned outward. And beyond Arabia's deserts lay two mighty empires, weakened and vulnerable. To the northwest lay the Byzantine Empire, still powerful but strained by endless wars and internal strife. To the northeast, the Sassanian Persian Empire, vast, rich, but collapsing under the weight of its own decadence and civil war. Neither empire suspected that the small, newly united Arab state could pose any real threat, but they were about to be proven terribly wrong. Under Caliph Abu Bakr, the first expeditions beyond Arabia began. Small armies of lightly armed Arab warriors, often no more than a few thousands, set out towards Syria and Iraq. Their goal was not initially conquest, but to test the strength of their neighbors and spread Islam's influence. Yet in battle after battle, these small forces achieved the impossible. In 633 CE, the brilliant general Khalid ibn al-Walid, known to history as the Sword of Allah, led the Muslim army into Iraq, then a province of the Persian Empire. His campaigns were swift and devastating. The Arabs fought with ferocity and faith, believing paradise awaited those who fell in battle. At the Battle of Walaha, Khalid faced a much larger Persian force. He used a double envelopment, an ancient maneuver perfected by Hannibal's centuries earlier, to surround and annihilate the enemy. The victory stunned the Persians and opened the gates of Mesopotamia. Khalid's conquests in Iraq were lightning fast, but events in Syria soon demanded his presence. The Byzantine Empire had begun mobilizing its armies to counter the new Arab threat. Abu Bakr ordered Khalid to march north and reinforce the Muslim armies fighting there. In one of the most remarkable marches in military history, Khalid led his troops across the barren Syrian desert over 500 miles with no rivers, no roads, and only sparse water sources. Many thought it suicide, but he succeeded, arriving unexpectedly behind the Byzantine lines. Now, the tide of history turned decisively. In 634 CE, the Muslims clashed with the Byzantines at the Battle of Ajnadain in Palestine. Despite being outnumbered, The Muslims' discipline, mobility, and morale won the day. Soon after, Abu Bakr died, and Umar ibn al-Khattab became the second caliph. Umar was austere, wise, and uncompromising, a man who would oversee one of the fastest expansions in human history under Umar's leadership. The conquests accelerated. In 636 CE, the decisive Battle of Yarmouk took place near the river Yarmouk, to modern-day Syria and Jordan. The Byzantine army, numbering around 100,000 men, faced a Muslim force of roughly 25,000 for 6 brutal days. The two sides fought amid dust and chaos. The Byzantines, weighed down by armor and divided by language and religion, could not match the coordination of the Muslims. Khalid ibn al-Walid's leadership was masterful. In the final hours, a sandstorm blew across the field, blinding the Byzantines as the Muslims launched a full counterattack. The result was a complete rout. The Byzantine army was annihilated, and the road to Syria lay open. With Yarmouk, the fate of the Byzantine East was sealed. Damascus, the jewel of Syria, surrendered soon after. Then came Homs, Hama, and Aleppo. In just 2 years, nearly all of Syria was in Muslim hands. The Byzantine emperor, Heraclius, who had once defeated the Persians and reclaimed the true cross, now lamented bitterly, saying, "Farewell. A long farewell to Syria, my fair province. You are in enemies now." Meanwhile, in the east, another storm was brewing. The Persian Empire, though wounded, was not yet defeated. The Muslim armies under Sa'd ibn Abi Waqqas advanced into Iraq, pushing deeper into Sassanian territory. The decisive confrontation came in 636 CE at the Battle of Al-Qadisiyah. The Persians fielded elephants, heavy infantry, and cavalry under the command of General Rostam, one of their finest. For 3 days, the battle raged fiercely. The Arabs, though outnumbered, were swift and coordinated, using flexible tactics to outmaneuver the lumbering Persian formations. At a critical moment, Muslim archers targeted the elephants' eyes, causing panic among the beasts and chaos among Persian ranks. As night fell, Rostam was slain, and the Persian army collapsed. Qadisiyah was a catastrophic defeat for the Sassanids. 2 years later, in 638 CE, the Muslims entered the Persian capital of Ctesiphon once, one of the richest cities in the world. The treasures of Persia fell into Arab hands, and the empire that had stood for 4 centuries began to crumble. But the Caliph Umar did not stop there. He turned his attention back west, toward Jerusalem, the holy city revered by Jews and Christians alike. The Byzantine garrison, surrounded and exhausted, eventually surrendered peacefully. In a remarkable act of mercy, Umar himself traveled to the city to receive its keys. He entered Jerusalem humbly, refusing to pray inside the Church of the Holy Sepulchre to ensure it would remain a Christian place of worship. His actions earned respect even among his enemies. The conquest of Jerusalem symbolized not just military triumph, but a new era of tolerance and coexistence, values that would define much of the early Islamic world. Over the next few years, Muslim armies swept across Egypt. Under the command of Amr ibn al-As, they defeated Byzantine forces at the Battle of Heliopolis in 640 CE and captured Alexandria, the second largest city of the empire. Egypt, the breadbasket of the Mediterranean, was now part of the Caliphate. Within less than a decade, the Muslims had conquered an area stretching from the Nile to the Euphrates, but the momentum didn't stop. The remnants of the Persian Empire regrouped under Yazdegerd III, the last Sassanid king. He tried to rally his people for one final stand, but in 642 CE, at the Battle of Nahavand, called the Victory of Victories by Muslim historians, the Persians were crushed once and for all. The ancient empire of Cyrus and Darius was gone, and the Islamic Caliphate now ruled from Arabia to Central Asia. How did this happen? How did desert tribes overthrow 2 of the greatest empires in history within a single generation? The answer lies not just in faith, but in circumstance. The Arabs were united by a powerful belief in Islam, a religion that emphasized discipline, equality, and divine purpose. Their enemies, meanwhile, were divided and weary. The Byzantines and Persians had fought each other for decades, draining their treasuries and morale. When the Arabs struck, they struck at a world already crumbling, but there was also something unique about the early Muslim armies. They were not professional soldiers, nor mercenaries fighting for plunder alone. They were driven by conviction, by a belief that their struggle was sacred. Their commanders, often companions of the Prophet himself, led by example. Living simply and sharing in their soldiers' hardships, this moral cohesion gave them an edge no empire could match. Under Caliph Umar, conquered territories were organized efficiently. Rather than destroying local societies, the Muslims preserved them. Christians, Jews, and Zoroastrians were allowed to practice their faiths in exchange for a modest tax. Cities like Damascus, Ctesiphon, and Alexandria became thriving centers of learning and trade. Arabic replaced Greek and Persian as the language of administration. And Islam's message began to spread beyond the sword through culture, law, and education. By 650 CE, the map of the Middle East was unrecognizable. The Byzantine Empire had lost its richest provinces. The Sassanid Empire had vanished, and the once isolated tribes of Arabia now governed an empire larger than that of Alexander the Great. But the conquests were not without cost. As wealth and power poured into the Caliphate, divisions began to emerge over leadership and faith. The unity forged under Muhammad soon fractured into political and religious struggles, the seeds of future civil wars. Still, the early conquests left an enduring legacy. They transformed the Arab world from a peripheral desert to the center of civilization. They spread not only a new religion, but also new systems of governance, trade, and knowledge. The cities conquered in those years would later give birth to a golden age of science, art, and philosophy: Baghdad, Damascus, Cairo, standing on the foundations laid by those first daring warriors of the desert. And perhaps the most astonishing part of this story is its speed. In just 30 years, people who had once been dismissed as insignificant tribes had rewritten the political and spiritual map of the known world. From the deserts of Arabia came a storm that reshaped empires, faiths, and nations. The early Muslim conquests were not merely wars of expansion, they were the dawn of a new civilization. They marked the moment when the ancient world ended and the Islamic world began. A world that would, for centuries, lead in science, philosophy, and culture, from Mecca's humble beginnings to the walls of Ctesiphon and the gates of Jerusalem. One truth became clear: ideas, when carried by conviction, can move mountains, and even deserts can give birth to empires.